The sky above Velthara burned red, not from sunset, but from the fires that consumed what remained of their cities. Hyunwoo stood in the control room of the last archive, his hands trembling as he watched the screens. Each one showed the same horror. Black machines crawling across the surface like insects, tearing apart everything they touched. The Ravagers had come 6 months ago, and now his world was dying. The control room felt too empty. Once, 40 technicians worked here. Now only Hyunwoo remained, along with Jia, who stood by the door with her weapon ready. She was the commander of their defense forces, though there was little left to defend. Her face was hard, carved from stone by too much loss. "How much power do we have left?" Jia asked. Hyunwoo checked his console. The numbers made his stomach hurt. "Enough for maybe 6 more hours of shields, or—" He paused, looking at the massive transmission array that took up half the room. "Or 1 final broadcast." Jia walked closer, her boots heavy on the metal floor. "You want to send the signal?" "It's our only chance," Hyunwoo said. He pulled up a map showing their sector of space. Red markers covered most of it. "Every world near us is gone. The Kellyan Empire fell 3 weeks ago. The Morthis Collective stopped responding last month. We're alone, Jia. Completely alone." She studied the map with cold eyes. "And you think someone out there will hear us? Will care?" "I have to believe they will." Hyunwoo's voice cracked. He thought of his brother, Tai Min, down in the shield generators. He thought of the 10,000 survivors hiding in bunkers beneath the archive. "Because if I don't believe that, then what are we fighting for?" The door opened. Taemin entered, his engineering suit covered in burn marks. He was younger than Hyunwoo by 3 years, but tonight he looked ancient. "The shields are failing faster than predicted. We have 4 hours, maybe less." Hyunwoo turned to Jia. "Please, let me send the signal." For a long moment, Jia said nothing. Then she nodded just once. "Do it, but make it count." Hyunwoo's fingers flew over the controls. He had prepared this message weeks ago, refining it every night when he couldn't sleep. It contained everything. The Veltharan language, complete with context and grammar guides, star charts showing their location in Andromeda, mathematical proofs to show intelligence, and finally, the message itself. He read it one last time before encoding it. "To anyone who receives this, we are the Veltharan people. We are dying. A force we cannot stop has destroyed our civilization. In 3 days, perhaps less, we will be extinct. We do not ask for revenge. We do not ask for justice. We only ask to be remembered. And if you can help others facing what we face, please do so. Don't let our death mean nothing. Please. Someone, anyone, hear us." His hand hovered over the transmission button. This would drain their power reserves. The shields would fall within the hour. Every second of protection they had left would be spent on this gamble. "Brother," Taemin said quietly, "I believe in you." Hyunwoo pressed the button. The transmission array came alive with light. Energy poured through the system, broadcasting on every frequency the Veltharans had ever discovered. The signal pushed outward at the speed of light, then caught the quantum relay amplifiers and jumped into faster-than-light transmission. It would reach nearby systems in hours, distant galaxies in weeks. The lights in the archive dimmed. Warning alarms began to sound. "Shields at 30%, Taemin reported, running to his console. "Dropping fast." Jia activated her communication device. "All forces, this is Commander Jia. The shields are failing. Begin evacuation protocol 7. Get everyone into the deep bunkers. We're going underground." The next hour passed in chaos. Hyunwoo helped coordinate the evacuation, guiding survivors through the tunnels while the world above them tore itself apart. He could hear the Ravagers on the surface, their machine screams echoing through the metal walls. Taemin stayed at his post in the shield generator room, His voice came through Hyunwoo's communicator, steady despite the terror they all felt. "I can give you 20 more minutes if I reroute the life support." "No!" Hyunwoo shouted. "Get out of there!" "The families with children are still moving through Section 7, Tae-min replied. "They need time, brother. Let me give it to them." Hyunwoo wanted to run back, to drag his brother to safety, but Jia's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "He's made his choice," she said, not unkindly. "Honor it." The last survivors reached the deep bunker. Hyunwoo stood at the entrance, counting each face. 417 people. That's all that remained of a civilization of billions. Children clung to their parents. Elders moved slowly, their eyes distant with shock. Young soldiers tried to look brave and failed. "Hyunwoo!" Tae-min's voice crackled through the communicator. "Tell Mom I love her. Tell her I was brave." Their mother had died 2 months ago when the capital fell, but Hyunwoo didn't correct him. "I will. I promise." "Did anyone answer our signal yet?" Hyunwoo looked at his portable scanner. Empty. Silent. "Not yet." "They will," Tae-min said. He sounded so sure. "Someone good is out there. Someone who cares. They'll come." The communicator went dead. A moment later, a distant explosion shook the bunker. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. Jia gave orders for the final doors to seal. They waited in the darkness of the deep bunker. Days passed. Their supplies dwindled. Above them, the Ravagers searched for any remaining life. Sometimes the survivors could hear them, crawling through the ruins, hungry for completion. Hyunwoo checked his scanner every hour. Nothing. No response to their signal. No sign that anyone in the universe had heard them or cared. On the third day, Jia found him staring at the blank screen. "Maybe we're the last ones," she said. "Maybe every species that could help is already dead. Or maybe they heard us and decided we're not worth saving." "Maybe," Hyunwoo admitted. The hope that had sustained him was dying. He thought about Tae-min's sacrifice, about the signal they'd sent, about the silence that answered them. "But we tried. That has to mean something." A child approached them. She was maybe 7 years old, with wide eyes that had seen too much. "Are the good people coming?" she asked. Hyunwoo knelt down to her level. He wanted to tell her yes. He wanted to promise rescue and safety and a future, but he'd seen too much death to lie to her. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I hope so. I really, really hope so." The child nodded seriously, then went back to her mother. Jia sat beside him on the cold floor. 6 weeks, she said. "That's how long our supplies will last. Then it's over." 6 weeks, Hyunwoo repeated. He looked at his scanner one more time. Still nothing. Just endless, crushing silence from the stars. He thought about all the species out there, living their lives, not knowing or not caring that the Veltharans were dying alone in the dark. He turned off the scanner to save power. In 6 weeks, it wouldn't matter anymore. In 6 weeks, the Veltharans would be extinct, and the universe would continue on as if they had never existed. But somewhere deep inside, under all the despair and fear, a tiny spark of hope refused to die. Someone was out there. Someone had to be. Because the alternative, a universe where no one answered a dying species' final cry for help, was too horrible to accept. So they waited in the darkness and hoped, and tried not to count the hours until the end. 6 weeks had passed since the signal. Hyunwoo had stopped checking his scanner after the first month. Hope was a luxury they couldn't afford anymore. The bunker's air recyclers struggled to keep up with demand. Food rations had been cut in half, then cut again. People were dying, not from Ravager attacks, but from hunger, from illness, from simple despair. Jia called a meeting of the remaining leaders. 12 people gathered in the command section, their faces hollow. "We have 3 days of food left," she said bluntly. "After that, we start making impossible choices." Hyunwoo barely heard her. He was too tired, too empty. Taemin's sacrifice felt like a waste now. Nobody had come. Nobody cared. Then the alarms went off. Everyone froze. Those alarms meant only one thing. Something had entered their star system. Hyunwoo's hands shook as he activated his scanner. Please be quick, he thought. If the Ravagers had found them, let it be over fast. But the reading on his scanner made no sense. The ship that appeared wasn't Ravager design. It wasn't any design he recognized. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Veltharan warship, and it was moving impossibly fast, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right at the edge of their system. "What is that?" Jia demanded, looking over his shoulder. "I don't know," Hyunwoo whispered. His heart was pounding now. "But it's not one of them." The scanner showed the Ravager swarm reacting to the newcomer. Thousands of their machines changed course, forming attack patterns. They'd been searching the planet's surface for the last survivors. Now they turned their attention to this new target. The unknown ship didn't run. It didn't even slow down. It drove straight into the swarm. What happened next would haunt Hyunwoo's dreams for the rest of his life, but in a good way. The ship opened fire with weapons he'd never seen before. Streams of solid metal moving so fast they punched through Ravager hulls like paper. Bright flashes of controlled nuclear fire that consumed dozens of machines at once. And strangest of all, small objects that detached from the ship and moved with intelligent purpose, swarming around Ravagers like angry insects. "It's fighting them," someone whispered in awe. "It's actually fighting them." In 20 minutes, the unknown ship destroyed more Ravagers than the entire Veltharan fleet had managed in 6 months. The machines tried to adapt, tried to overwhelm with numbers. Nothing worked. The ship moved through space like it was dancing, always in motion, never where the Ravagers expected. Then Hyunwoo's communication system activated. A voice spoke in perfect Veltharan, with only the slightest accent. "Veltharan survivors, this is the human vessel Indomitable Spirit. We received your message. We're here to help." Hyunwoo couldn't speak. His throat closed up. Tears ran down his face. Around him, others were crying too. Jia, who never showed emotion, had her hand over her mouth. "Please respond," the voice continued. "We know you're down there. We won't leave until we find you." Hyunwoo's fingers fumbled with the controls. When he finally managed to activate the transmitter, his voice came out broken. "We're here. We're alive. You came. You actually came." "Of course we came," the voice replied, warm with feeling. "That's what you do when someone asks for help. I'm Captain Daehyun Park. Can you give us your location? We're going to get you out of there." Over the next hour, Hyunwoo coordinated with the human ship. Captain Daehyun's crew spoke their language perfectly, which amazed him. How long had these humans studied the message? How far had they traveled? Jia was less trusting. "Why?" she kept asking. "Why would strangers cross space to help us? What do they want?" "Does it matter?" Hyunwoo replied. "They're here. They're fighting the Ravagers. They're offering help." "Everyone wants something," Jia said darkly. But even she couldn't hide the desperate hope in her eyes. The humans sent down transport ships. When the bunker doors opened for the first time in weeks, Hyunwoo saw them. They looked almost like Veltharans, which was strange. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But their skin colors were different, ranging from pale pink to dark brown. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that looked brutal and efficient. A human woman approached. She was small, but she moved with confidence. "I'm Lieutenant Yuna Kang. I'm a xenolinguist. I was part of the team that decoded your message." "How?" Hyunwoo asked. "How did you learn our language so quickly?" Yuna smiled. It was a kind smile. "We've had practice. You're not the first species we've helped." They loaded the survivors onto the transport ships. Hyun-woo expected to be taken to some processing center, maybe interrogated. Instead, they were brought to medical bays. Human doctors worked alongside automated systems, treating injuries and illnesses. They gave the children food, real food, not rations. The children ate like they'd never seen food before. Hyun-woo was brought to the bridge of the indomitable spirit. Captain Dae-hyun was there, a tall man with gray at his temples and tired eyes. "Welcome aboard," he said. "I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner." "How far did you come?" Hyun-woo asked. "From Earth, our homeworld, about 2.5 million light years." Hyun-woo's legs went weak. That's impossible. Nothing travels that far." "We do," Dae-hyun said simply, "when we hear someone calling for help." Another human approached. He was younger, with sharp eyes that constantly scanned the bridge. "I'm Lieutenant Woo Jin, Tactical Officer. We need to talk about these Ravagers. We've fought machine intelligences before, but never quite like this. They adapt fast." "They adapt to everything," Hyun-woo said bitterly. "That's why no one can stop them." "We're not no one," Woo Jin replied with a slight grin. "We're humans. We specialize in impossible problems." Ji-ah arrived on the bridge, escorted by human soldiers. She looked around suspiciously, her hand never far from her weapon. Captain Dae-hyun noticed and didn't seem offended. "Commander Ji-ah, I presume. Your reputation precedes you. Your defense of the Southern Archive was masterful." "How do you know about that?" Ji-ah demanded. "It was in your signal. The historical records you sent." Dae-hyun pulled up a display. "We studied everything. Your culture, your history, your military tactics. We wanted to understand who we were coming to help." "Why?" Ji-ah asked the question that haunted them all. "Why would you do this? Travel millions of light years for strangers? Risk your lives for people you've never met?" Dae-hyun's expression grew serious. "Because we know what it's like to be alone and scared. Humanity has faced extinction more times than I can count. Wars, plagues, environmental collapse. We nearly died a dozen different ways, and every time we survived it was because someone chose to help instead of walking away. Because someone chose to be better." "But we're not your people," Ji-ah said. "You are now," Dae-hyun replied firmly. "The moment we heard your message, you became our people. That's what humanity does. We adopt, we protect, we show up." Yuna stepped forward with a data pad. "We need to talk about the reality of your situation. We've scanned the planet. The Ravagers have consumed 97% of your world's resources. It can't support life anymore. We're going to have to evacuate everyone." Hyun-woo felt his world collapse again. "Evacuate? To where?" "We have colony worlds," Yuna said gently. "Protected systems where the Ravagers haven't reached. We can take you there, help you rebuild." "Just like that?" Hyun-woo couldn't believe it. "You'll just give us a world?" "We'll help you make a new home," Dae-hyun corrected. "It won't be easy, but you'll be alive to try." Alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Woo Jin's hands flew over his console. "Captain, we have a problem. The Ravagers are calling for reinforcements, massive numbers. They're not happy about us being here." Dae-hyun studied the tactical display. Thousands of red dots appeared at the edge of the system, growing to tens of thousands. "Well," he said calmly, "this is going to be interesting." "Interesting?" Ji-ah stared at him. "That's a death sentence. You need to run. Take the survivors and go." "We're not running," Dae-hyun said. He activated the ship-wide communication. "All hands, this is the captain. We've got incoming hostiles in force. They want to finish what they started with these people. I've got one thing to say about that. Not on my watch. Not today. Not ever. Helm, bring us about. Weapons, spin up everything we've got. Science, I want every trick in the book. We're going to show these machines what happens when they mess with our friends." "Your friends?" Hyun-woo whispered. Dae-hyun looked at him with absolute certainty. You sent a signal into the void asking for help. We're humans. We answered. That makes you our friends, and humans protect their friends. The battle was about to begin. The battle lasted 3 days. Hyunwoo watched it all from the bridge, unable to look away even when exhaustion made his eyes burn. The Ravagers came in waves, each one larger than the last, and the humans fought them back every single time. But it was the way they fought that shocked him. Veltharan military doctrine focused on efficiency, on calculated risks, on preserving forces for strategic advantage. Human tactics were nothing like that. They were aggressive, wild, almost reckless. When a Ravager formation broke through their line, human ships didn't retreat. They charged forward, closing to ranges where weapons from both sides tore into each other. Don't they care about casualties? Jia asked, watching a human destroyer take heavy damage while protecting a transport full of Veltharan survivors. They care, Wu Jin replied from his station. That's why they fight this way. Every second we buy is another survivor evacuated. Every Ravager we destroy here is one that won't hunt refugees later. We don't fight to win cleanly, we fight to make sure everyone gets out alive. The human ship shuddered under another impact. Dae-hyun barely reacted, simply calling out orders with steady calm. Reroute power from the port shields to weapons. Target their command node. Fire everything. Port shields are protecting the medical bay, someone reported. We'll be exposed. Do it anyway, Dae-hyun said. Those Veltharans need medical care more than we need shields. Hyunwoo couldn't comprehend it. They were putting his people's safety above their own. Why? What made humans this way? When the last wave finally broke, the Ravagers retreated. Not far, just to the outer system, regrouping. The indomitable spirit was scarred and burning, but still flying. Captain Dae-hyun allowed himself a tired smile. All survivors are aboard. Helm, set course for Rally Point Alpha. Let's get these people somewhere safe. The journey took 5 days. During that time, Hyunwoo explored the human ship. It was strange. Everything about it felt wrong to his Veltharan sensibilities. Where were the elegant curves, the artistic touches, the efficient use of space? This ship was a box with guns attached. Every surface was metal and function. There was no beauty here, only brutal purpose. But it worked. It worked incredibly well. Yuna found him one day in an observation deck, staring out at the stars. "What do you think of human ships?" she asked. "They're ugly," Hyunwoo said honestly, then worried he'd offended her. "I mean no offense," Yuna laughed. "None taken. You're right, they're ugly. We build for war, not for art. Maybe when we don't need warships anymore, we'll make pretty ones." "Do you think that day will come?" Hyunwoo asked. "I hope so." Yuna sat beside him. "But probably not in my lifetime. There are too many Ravagers. Too many other threats, too many species calling for help. How many messages have you received?" The question had haunted Hyunwoo since they arrived. Yuna's expression grew pained. "Hundreds, from all over this galactic cluster. Most are automated, sent after the species was already dead. We follow them anyway, hoping to find survivors. Sometimes we do, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes we arrive to find empty worlds and silence." Yuna looked down at her hands. "We've saved 43 species now. You're the 43rd, but we've failed to save hundreds more. We weren't fast enough. Our ships weren't advanced enough. We didn't have enough resources." Hyunwoo thought about that. 43 saved species, hundreds lost. Why do you keep trying? Doesn't it hurt? Knowing you can't save everyone? "It hurts every single day," Yuna admitted. "But giving up would hurt more. If we stop trying, then all those voices calling out into the dark get nothing but silence. And we can't let that happen. Humans can't let that happen." She pulled out a small device and showed him images. "This is Earth, our home world." The planet was beautiful, blue and green, and alive. It almost died 6 times. Once from nuclear war, twice from environmental collapse, once from an AI we created that turned against us, once from a plague, once from something we still don't fully understand. How did you survive? Hyunwoo asked. Stubborn luck and people who refuse to quit. Yuna scrolled through more images. They showed destruction, but also rebuilding. Humanity at its worst and its best. We learned something from nearly dying so many times. We learned that the universe is hostile and doesn't care about us, but we also learned that the best parts of being alive are the connections we make, the people we love, the strangers we help. So you travel millions of light years to help strangers? Yes, Yuna said simply. Because if we had sent a signal and nobody came, we would have died alone and afraid. We won't let others feel that way. Not if we can help it. Jia joined them in the observation deck. She'd been spending time with the human Marines, learning their tactics. Your people are insane, she announced. Completely insane. We get that a lot, Yuna said cheerfully. I watched your combat recordings. You have a tactic called aggressive boarding. You crash your ships into enemy vessels and fight hand-to-hand inside them. Jia shook her head in disbelief. What kind of species does that? The kind that really, really wants to win, Yuna replied. Also, ship weapons don't work well inside a ship, but bullets and explosives do. You're all going to get yourselves killed, Jia said. But there was respect in her voice now, not just confusion. Dae-hyun called a meeting in the main briefing room. All the Veltharan leaders attended, along with the human command staff. He pulled up a star map showing their section of the galaxy. We need to talk about what happens next. We're taking you to a system we call Haven. It's protected by defense platforms and has 2 habitable planets. We've settled refugee species there before. You'll have land, resources, and most importantly, safety. For how long? Jia asked. The Ravagers won't stop, they never stop. Neither do we, Wu Jin said. We've been tracking Ravager movements for 15 years now. We think they're following a programmed pattern, executing orders from an extinct species. We're working on finding their central control network. If we can shut it down, the whole threat ends. That's impossible, Hyunwoo said. The Ravagers have existed for thousands of years. Every advanced species in this region has tried to stop them. Every advanced species except humans, Dae-hyun pointed out. We're not from this region. We think differently. Fight differently. Maybe that'll make a difference. The briefing continued for hours. The humans laid out detailed plans for resettlement, resource allocation, education programs. They'd done this before, 42 times before, and they'd learned from each experience. They knew how to help refugees become communities again. Later, Hyunwoo found himself alone with Dae-hyun in the captain's quarters. Can I ask you something personal? Hyunwoo said. Go ahead. Why do you do this? You specifically. You could have a safe job somewhere, but you're out here, fighting impossible battles for people you'll never see again after you drop them off. Dae-hyun poured 2 drinks, some kind of human alcohol. When I was young, my colony was attacked by pirates, bad ones, the kind that don't just want your stuff, the kind that want to hurt you. We sent out a distress call. Do you know how many ships answered? Hyunwoo shook his head. 11. 11 different ships changed course to help us. Military, civilian, even a cargo hauler whose captain decided his schedule could wait. They saved my family, saved my whole colony. And when I asked one of them why they came, he said, because someone needed help, kid. That's the only reason you ever need. Dae-hyun took a drink. So now I'm that person, the one who shows up when people need help, because someone did it for me once. Is that why all humans do this? Because it was done for them? Partly, but also because we've been on the other side. We know what it feels like to be terrified and alone, to think nobody cares, to believe you're going to die and be forgotten. Dae-hyun met his eyes. We can't let others feel that way, not when we have ships and weapons and the ability to help. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then, Dae-hyun said firmly. Because what's the point of having power if you don't use it to protect people? What's the point of surviving if you become the kind of species that ignores calls for help? The ship's intercom activated. Captain to the bridge. We're detecting another distress signal. Different frequency. Unknown language. Dae-hyun stood immediately. Hyunwoo followed him to the bridge. The communications station showed a weak signal, heavily distorted. Yuna was already working on it. It's old, she reported. Maybe 3 weeks. Automated beacon. The species is... She worked frantically. I've never seen this language before. They're not in any of our databases. Can you locate them? Dae-hyun asked. Working on it. Yes. Found them. 3 light-years from our current position. Small system, low metallicity star. Dae-hyun didn't hesitate. Helm, change course. Maximum speed. Comms, broadcast response on all frequencies. Let them know help is coming. Jia spoke up from where she'd been observing. You're already carrying refugees. Your ship is damaged. You haven't rested in days. And you want to go help someone else? Yes, Dae-hyun said. It wasn't arrogant or self-righteous. Just simple fact. Someone needs help. Hyunwoo understood then. This wasn't just policy or military doctrine. This was who humans were. This was what they did. They heard calls for help and they came running, no matter the cost, no matter the danger, no matter how tired they were. They were insane. Beautiful, ridiculous, wonderful insane. The new distress call turned out to be a false alarm. The species had been dead for weeks before their automated beacon activated. The indomitable spirit arrived to find empty cities and silence. Yuna cried when they confirmed it. So did half the human crew. They'd pushed their damaged ship to maximum speed, hoping to save someone, and arrived too late. But there was no time to mourn. Because while they were investigating the dead world, the Ravagers found Velthara again. The alert came through in the middle of ship's night. Hyunwoo was sleeping in temporary quarters when the alarms woke him. He ran to the bridge still in his sleeping clothes. The tactical display showed his worst nightmare. The Ravagers hadn't retreated to lick their wounds. They'd gone to call for help. 10,000 enemy contacts. Maybe more. They filled the display like a swarm of insects, all converging on Velthara's star system. How? Jia demanded. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. How did they find it again so fast? They never lost it, Woo-jin reported grimly. They left trackers, waited until we were far away. Now they're moving in for the kill. The Veltharan survivors, still on Velthara, numbered about 2,000. They'd been left behind to coordinate the final evacuation, to gather historical artifacts, to say goodbye to their dying world. Now they were trapped. Dae-hyun's face was stone. Helm! Fastest course back to Velthara. Engineering, I need every spare bit of power. Comms, send out emergency calls to any human ships in range. Nearest backup is 6 days away, the communications officer reported. The Defiant Dawn and Eternal Vigil. They're responding, but we'll be dead in 6 days, Jia finished. She looked at Dae-hyun. You should run. Save the refugees you already have. Don't die for 2,000 people you'll never reach in time. We're not leaving them, Dae-hyun said flatly. Chart the fastest course. We're going in. The journey back took 2 days. 2 days of preparation, of planning, of knowing they were racing toward almost certain death. Hyunwoo spent those days helping however he could. Yuna taught him about Ravager weaknesses. Woo-jin showed him human combat tactics. Jia drilled with the human Marines, learning their aggressive boarding techniques. On the second day, Jia found Hyun-woo in the armory. He was staring at human weapons, trying to understand them. They were so simple compared to Veltharan energy rifles. Just metal tubes that threw pieces of metal very fast. But they worked. "I'm going down there," Jia said. "When we reach Velthara, I'm going down to help defend the survivors." "They won't let you," Hyun-woo replied. "You're too valuable. You're a commander, a leader." "I'm a soldier," Jia corrected. "And soldiers fight. I can't sit on this ship while my people die below. I won't." She picked up one of the human rifles, feeling its weight. "These humans, they're teaching me things I never knew about combat, about fighting when you're outnumbered, about winning when victory should be impossible." "Will it be enough?" Hyun-woo asked. "I don't know, but I have to try." When they emerged from faster-than-light travel at Velthara, the Ravagers were already there. The once beautiful world was covered in their machines. The 2,000 Veltharan survivors had fortified the last archive, turning it into a bunker. They'd held out for 2 days already, but they were running out of ammunition and time. Dae-hyun studied the tactical display. 1 human ship, 10,000 Ravager machines. "Well," he said dryly, "I've seen worse odds." "When?" Woo-jin asked. "I'm lying. These are the worst odds I've ever seen." Dae-hyun activated ship-wide communications. "Attention all hands. We're about to do something very stupid. We're going to attack a force that outnumbers us 10,000 to 1. We're going to do this because 2,000 people down there are counting on us, because we didn't come this far to quit now. Because that's what humans do. We show up and we fight and we don't stop until everyone gets home safe. So check your gear, say your prayers, and let's go remind these machines why they should fear us." The cheers that echoed through the ship made Hyun-woo's chest tight. Jia suited up in human combat armor. It was too big for her, designed for human proportions, but the humans modified it quickly. Woo-jin would lead the boarding party. Jia volunteered to join him. 20 human marines and 1 Veltharan commander, dropping into hell together. "You don't have to do this," Hyun-woo told his friend before she boarded the dropship. "Yes, I do," Jia replied. "I've spent 6 months watching my people die because I couldn't stop it. Maybe I can't stop it now either, but I can try. I can fight beside beings who came across the universe to help us. That means something." The indomitable spirit drove into the swarm. Weapons blazing, shields flaring, every system pushed beyond safe limits. They carved a path through the Ravagers like a knife through flesh. Behind them, the dropships descended toward the surface. Hyun-woo watched from the bridge. He'd never felt so useless. Down there, Jia and the humans were fighting. Up here, he could only watch and hope. The communications crackled. "This is Woo-jin. We've made contact with the Veltharan survivors. Linking up now. Oh hell, there's a lot of them. Hostiles everywhere." The tactical display showed the ground battle. It was chaos. The humans fought with controlled aggression, using tactics that made no sense but somehow worked. They charged forward when they should retreat. They exposed themselves to draw enemy fire away from Veltharan positions. They used themselves as bait. Jia's voice came through, breathless and excited. "These humans are insane! We just blew up a Ravager command unit with homemade explosives, and now we're running through the debris." "Insane, but effective," Woo-jin's voice added. "Commander Jia is adapting well to our tactics. She just suggested we collapse a building on the enemy." "Did it work?" Dae-hyun asked. "Perfectly. She's a natural." But the Ravagers kept coming. For every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The indomitable spirit was taking heavy damage. Fires broke out across 3 decks. The shields were failing, and they were still surrounded. Then Yuna shouted from her station, "Captain, I'm detecting 2 ships dropping out of FTL. Human signatures. It's the Defiant Dawn and Eternal Vigil." The 2 human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel like avenging angels. They were smaller than the indomitable spirit, faster, more aggressive, and they brought something new to the battle. "What are those?" Hyunwoo asked, staring at the display. New contacts were launching from the human ships, hundreds of them. They moved with purpose, with intelligence. "AI combat drones," Dae-hyun said quietly. "We don't like to use them. They remind us too much of the Ravagers, but sometimes you fight fire with fire," Hyunwoo finished. The AI drones engaged the Ravagers. It was like watching two swarms of insects fight, both sides adapting and evolving in real time. But the human drones had something the Ravagers didn't. They weren't trying to exterminate. They were trying to protect. A new voice came over communications. "This is Rear Admiral Sun-hee of the Defiant Dawn. Sorry we're late to the party. Let's even these odds." The three human ships worked together like they shared one mind. They covered each other's weaknesses, coordinated their attacks, bought time for the ground teams to evacuate survivors. It was beautiful and terrible to watch. On the ground, Woo Jin and Ji-ah led the Veltharan survivors toward the extraction point. They fought every step of the way. The humans never left anyone behind, even when it would have been easier, even when it would have been safer. Ji-ah dragged a wounded Veltharan child through enemy fire. A human marine, a young woman named Hana, covered them with her own body. She took 3 hits that would have killed the child. Her armor saved her barely. "Why?" Ji-ah gasped when they reached cover. "Why did you do that?" Hana grinned through her pain. "Because that's what we do. Now come on. Let's get this kid home." The evacuation took 6 hours. 6 hours of constant combat, of impossible heroics, of humans and Veltharans fighting side by side against overwhelming odds. When the last survivor was loaded onto the ships, Woo Jin did a final count. "Everyone's here," he reported, disbelief in his voice. 2,000 Veltharan survivors, 20 human marines, everyone made it out. Dae-hyun allowed himself a tired smile. "Then let's go home." But the Ravagers had one last surprise. Their command node activated, sending out a massive electromagnetic pulse. It disabled the human ship's weapons, fried their shields, left them dead in space. Woo Jin's voice crackled through static. "Captain, we have a problem. The Ravagers are regrouping, and we're defenseless." Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display. The Ravagers were forming up for a final attack. In minutes, they would overwhelm the human ships. After everything, after all the sacrifices, they were going to lose. Then Ji-ah's voice cut through the despair. "No, not like this. Hyunwoo, can you still access the last archive systems?" "Maybe. Why?" "Because I have an idea. A very stupid, very human idea. And I need your help." What Ji-ah proposed was insane. They were going to overload the last archive's power core and use it as a massive bomb. It would destroy everything within 100 kilometers, including the Ravagers, including the archive, including every piece of Veltharan history still stored there. "Do it," Hyunwoo said without hesitation. "Our history means nothing if we're all dead. Taemin didn't sacrifice himself so we could die anyway." "Blow it up." Working together across communication channels, Hyunwoo and Ji-ah initiated the overload sequence. The humans, realizing what they were doing, used their remaining power to retreat beyond the blast radius. The Ravagers, not understanding the trap, moved in for the kill. The last archive exploded like a small sun. The blast consumed thousands of Ravagers, destroyed their command node, and bought the humans enough time to restart their systems. When the light faded, Velthara's surface was a crater. The last archive was gone. The final piece of Veltharan civilization erased. But 2,000 survivors were safe, and sometimes that was enough. 6 months passed like a dream, or maybe like waking up from a nightmare. Hyunwoo still wasn't sure which. The human ships brought all 12,000 Veltharan survivors to Haven, a system with 2 habitable planets orbiting a yellow star. Other species already lived there. Refugees like the Veltharans, saved by humans from various extinctions. They welcomed the newcomers with understanding and kindness. The humans gave the Veltharans land on the 2nd planet, a world with purple skies and orange grass. It wasn't Velthara, would never be Velthara, but it was beautiful in its own way. More importantly, it was safe. The Ravagers didn't know this system existed. The humans had hidden it well, protected it with defensive satellites and patrol ships. Hyunwoo stood on a hillside overlooking the first Veltharan settlement. They'd named it New Beginning. Not very creative, but accurate. Below him, children played. Real playing, not the quiet, fearful activities of the bunker. They laughed. They ran. They lived without fear for the first time in months. "You look thoughtful," Yuna said, climbing the hill to join him. She visited often, staying for weeks at a time to help with translation and cultural adjustment. "I was thinking about Taemin," Hyunwoo admitted. "About whether he'd like this place." "He sacrificed himself so you could have this chance," Yuna said gently. "I think he'd be happy." The humans built a memorial for him. On Earth. Hyunwoo still couldn't believe it. "For my brother, a Veltharan, on the human homeworld. We honor those who give everything for others," Yuna explained. "It doesn't matter what species they are. Sacrifice is sacrifice. Heroism is heroism." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hyunwoo asked the question that had bothered him for months. "Why do you really do this?" "Don't give me the official answer. The truth." Yuna thought about it for a long time. "Because we were alone once. Really alone. When we first developed radio, we started sending messages out into space. 'Hello, is anyone there?' We sent those messages for 100 years. Do you know how many responses we got? None. None. Silence. Complete silence. We were so scared that we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Or worse, that we weren't alone but nobody cared enough to answer." Yuna's eyes were distant. "Then we developed faster-than-light travel. We went out into the galaxy expecting to find friends. Instead, we found ruins, dead civilizations, empty worlds, and distress calls. So many distress calls, sent decades or centuries ago, never answered." "That must have been horrible," Hyunwoo said. "It broke something in us. Or maybe it fixed something." Yuna smiled sadly. "We realized we'd become the answer we'd been looking for. We were the ones who could respond to those calls. So we made a choice. Humanity would be the species that shows up. Always. No matter what. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then." Jia joined them on the hill. She'd changed in 6 months. She smiled now sometimes. She'd taken a position training other species in combat tactics, teaching them the human way of fighting. Aggressive, protective, never leaving anyone behind. "They're calling for you," Jia told Hyunwoo. The communication center. Another signal came in. Hyunwoo's heart jumped. He'd joined the human relay network 3 months ago. His job was monitoring frequencies, listening for distress calls from across the galactic cluster. So far, he'd detected 7. 7 species calling out into the void, hoping someone would hear. The humans had responded to all of them. The communication center was a small building at the edge of New Beginning. Hyunwoo entered to find the equipment he'd requested, all of it donated by humanity. The signal was weak, heavily distorted, but definitely artificial. "Where's it coming from?" Jia asked, reading over his shoulder. "Unknown system, 3,000 light-years away." Hyunwoo worked to clean up the signal. "The language is... Wait. I recognize this structure. It's similar to old Veltharan, maybe a cousin species we never contacted." The message was automated, repeating every few hours. Hyunwoo translated it slowly. We are dying. Something is hunting us. If anyone hears this, please help. We don't want to die alone. Yuna was already on her communication device. I'm contacting the fleet. We'll have ships there in 4 days. Just like that? Hyunwoo asked. You don't need approval? Permission? The beacon protocols are clear, Yuna replied. Any distress call gets an immediate response. No debate, no delay. Someone needs help. We go. Within an hour, 3 human ships were preparing to depart. Captain Dae-hyun commanded one of them. He'd become famous among the rescue fleet, the captain who'd saved the Veltharans against impossible odds. But he never acted like a hero. He just did his job. Before departure, Dae-hyun met with Hyunwoo one last time. We're taking Veltharan crew members with us. If you want to join, there's a spot for you. Hyunwoo was shocked. You'd let me come? On a rescue mission? You know what it's like to be the one calling for help, Dae-hyun said. That understanding is valuable. Plus, you're good at decoding alien languages. We could use that skill. I'll go, Hyunwoo said immediately. Then he paused. But why are you really asking me? Dae-hyun's expression grew serious. Because this is bigger than just humanity now. We started the beacon protocols, but we can't maintain them alone forever. We need help. Partners. Other species who understand the mission and want to be part of it. You want Veltharans to become rescuers too? I want everyone to become rescuers. Every species we save, we invite them to join. Some say yes, some say no. That's fine, but the offer is always there. Dae-hyun looked out at New Beginning, at the children playing in the purple grass. We're building something here. A network of species who answer calls for help, who refuse to let others die alone. We're building a community of people who show up. Hyunwoo joined the crew of the Indomitable Spirit. He wasn't alone. Jia came too, along with 50 other Veltharans who volunteered. They wanted to help, wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. The mission to rescue the unknown species took 2 weeks. They arrived to find a world under attack by pirates. Not ravagers, just organic species who'd chosen cruelty. The humans and Veltharans drove them off, rescued the survivors, offered them sanctuary, and when those survivors asked why strangers would help them, Hyunwoo gave them the same answer the humans had given him. Because you needed help. That's the only reason we need. It became a pattern, a mission every few weeks. Sometimes they saved species, sometimes they arrived too late, but they always tried, always showed up, never stopped listening for calls for help. 1 year after the Veltharans sent their signal, Hyunwoo returned to Haven for a celebration. The Human Veltharan Alliance was being officially recognized. More species had joined. The network was growing. At the ceremony, Rear Admiral Sun Hee gave a speech. We call this the Covenant of Response. It's simple. If you hear someone calling for help, you answer. You don't ask what's in it for you. You don't calculate the risks. You just go. Because that's what good people do. That's what good species do. After the ceremony, Hyunwoo found Dae-hyun looking at the stars. What are you thinking about? Hyunwoo asked. The 43 species we've saved. Wondering how many of them will choose to join us. How many will take up the mission themselves? Dae-hyun glanced at him. You did. The Veltharans did. That gives me hope. Hope for what? That maybe someday we won't be needed anymore. Because everyone will be doing this. Everyone will be responding to calls for help. The whole universe will be watching out for each other. Dae-hyun smiled. That's the dream anyway. It's a good dream, Hyunwoo said. His communication device beeped. Another signal, another call for help. This one came from the edge of the galaxy, so far away it would take weeks to reach. Hyunwoo looked at the signal, then at Dae-hyun. We're going, aren't we? Of course we are, Dae-hyun replied. Someone needs help. They walked together toward the ship. Behind them, the celebration continued. Humans and Veltharans and a dozen other species, all united by one simple idea. When someone calls for help, you answer. Always. The indomitable spirit launched an hour later. Hyun-woo stood on the bridge, no longer a passenger but a crew member, a full member of the Beacon Network, a person who responded to calls for help. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Somewhere ahead, someone was scared and alone, hoping against hope that someone would hear their call, that someone would care enough to come. They would reach them in time, or they wouldn't. But they would try. They would show up. They would prove that the universe wasn't cold and empty and uncaring, because the Veltharans had sent a signal into the void. And humanity had answered. And now together they would make sure no one else's call went unanswered. Hyun-woo looked at the stars streaming past and thought about Tai-min, about his brother's sacrifice, about the memorial on Earth, where his name was carved beside humans and aliens and every other being who'd given everything to help others. "We heard you," Hyun-woo whispered to the darkness ahead. "We're here to help." It was a promise, a covenant, a mission that would never end as long as there were people willing to answer calls for help. The Veltharans had been the 43rd species saved, but they wouldn't be the last, not by a long shot. The network was growing, the covenant was spreading, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the next species in need was about to learn something wonderful. They weren't alone. They were never alone. Because humanity heard them, and humanity always answered. And now, so did the Veltharans. So did dozens of other species, all of them united by one simple truth. When someone calls for help, you show up. You fight. You don't give up. You don't let them die alone. That was the human way. And now, it was becoming the galaxy's way, too. The ship sailed on through the darkness, carrying hope to those who'd lost it, carrying help to those who needed it, carrying the message that would echo across every star system in the universe. "We heard you. We're here to help." And they always would be.